Good Friday morning, friends. Welcome back for another episode of the Finding God in the Dark podcast. My name is Don,
My name is Jonathan.
and today we are going to talk about the film that I chose. So I'm going to take all of the credit and the disdain um, for the 1964 Stanley Kubrick film, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned Not to Worry and Love the Bomb.
Yep.
This film, we were just briefly talking about it before we started recording. What an incredibly cynical film.
Mhm.
It's a satire. I get it. It's if you have never seen this film, which I put myself in that camp prior to watching it this week.
Yep.
Um, it is a satire.
Yep.
It's based on a book, and the interesting thing is the book is not a satire.
No.
The book is a
Yeah.
serious
Yeah.
look at, the consequences of nuclear
The
war.
war. Yeah.
But when Kubrick turned it into a film, he turned it into a comedy, a
Yes.
very dark comedy.
Probably one of the blackest comedies you can imagine.
Indeed. Um, where do we want to start with this one? Yeah, I mean, I can gush a little bit, but let's talk about themes. Where do you want to start, John?
I mean, I think the easiest place to start is its deep mistrust of violence slash war slash military. I mean, however you want to phrase it. It's very kind of basically, it actually, to be honest, it can feel when you're watching it as like this is over the top silly, and it is over the top silly. But what's funny is we literally in this country, I don't know about Russia, but in this country for many decades, we had an acronym for kind of the policy, which was MAD, mutual assured
Mutually
destruction.
assured destruction.
And so it's basically like if you start a nuclear war, the world will be destroyed, so you won't start a nuclear war. And that kind of idea is in and of itself very crazy, and he's hard poking at that idea. You know,
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Um, I I was really taken with some of the research I did about the film after watching it.
yeah,
There is so much in this film that is like a direct reference, like sexual innuendos and imagery that's supposed to suggest things. And a lot of the discussions circle around procreation and sustaining the world. Well, we'll get the 10 of the most beautiful women for every man,
yeah.
to survive the nuclear
And,
holocaust.
and of course, it must include the leaders, the political
Yeah,
leaders
of
of
course.
the country.
And the guy who ends up the guy who initiates all of the war basically does so because he believes that the Russians are um poisoning us with fluoride in
In
all of
our
our
water.
food products, which have made him impotent. Uh
Which is funny because that's kind of come around, and recently there's been an upsurge of people being very skeptical of fluoride in the water, and so it was very funny to see the fact we're still that conspiracy theory is still, sorting around.
yeah, well, undoubtedly, I mean, we've had decades now of places where the water was fluoridated.
Yeah,
Is that the right word?
yeah,
And so now we're starting to see, all of those people were guinea pigs, and
yeah,
what is the long-term effects of that, which haven't been 100% of what we expected, to be sure.
yeah,
But still, we didn't know that in 1964 when this
yeah.
film was made. Uh, and uh, it's it's hard to talk about this film without really just laughing at every aspect of it because it is so absurd.
Yes.
I do want to say, um, who's the actor?
Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers. Phenomenal in that he holds down three very different roles
Oh, yeah.
in this film, and in a lot of ways, like you can see him in Strangelove and in
president.
Mandrake.
Yeah,
But when you look at the president, it looks like a completely different person,
person. Yeah,
and there are scenes where the president and Strangelove are in the same,
right.
in the same scene. Now they're not in the same frame at the same
Yeah,
time, but they are in the same scene.
yeah,
And he holds this down. It's like seamless,
yeah.
which is incredible.
Yes.
Um, and there are other actors in here. Like I'm watching the credits opening, and I went, "Wait a minute, James Earl Jones is in this."
Yeah, 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 yeah.
As a obviously a very young man, but he's one of the part of the
Bomb
airplane
crew.
crew.
Yeah, bomb crew.
Um, George C. Scott. Uh, who else was in it? Slim Pickens.
Yeah.
Slim Pickens is the guy. You've all seen the scene, the guy that rides the bomb down. That's Slim Pickens. Uh, um, yeah. Okay, so we have the war angle, right? Like really, I think that's a good way to look at that's mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
Really is mad. It's insane.
Yeah. And that,
Um,
I mean, I think that's the point that he's trying to make is we look at this movie and we see it as a farce and silly, but we don't recognize that for decades in this country, our foreign policy was basically described as mad. Like it
yeah,
literally used the
yeah.
acronym MAD.
Well,
And no one said, hey, maybe that's not a good idea. Like,
and Strangelove really hits on that when the Russian exposes the Russian ambassador exposes the device, the doomsday device, right? Strangelove says, "Well, I don't believe you. Why would you have it and not tell anyone about it?
yeah,
Because it's only a deterrent if other people know."
yeah,
Which I mean, he's right,
yeah.
but still,
Well,
why
it
would
was
you
funny
do
to I love the response. Oh, you know the premiere. He's gonna announce it on Monday. He loves surprises. Like,
I think we're going to laugh more in this pod than we have in almost any other one.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
I do think it's interesting how, and granted, I wasn't really alive from, or at least actively an adult, but how crazy our thoughts around nuclear war were. I don't feel like you saw a lot of people stepping back and going like, if we start one, we destroy the world. Like we
yeah,
don't we don't win anything.
yeah. And to be fair, I'm not sure we've progressed a whole lot from that. I think we're still in very much the same place. Whereas, if Russia started launching nukes, we'd start launching nukes, and the Earth is a crisp.
Yes.
It's that scene from the second was it the second Planet of the Apes film from the 70s?
Yeah.
When they left the Earth and everything, they cracked the world open.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's now we're connecting two really disparate movies, but um, yeah, okay, anti-war. I think there's
The conspiracy thing is also interesting that
yeah,
and then kind of how I loved at the end where Doctor Strangelove, who is, and again, he's poking fun of actual things. Like a lot of our development of nuclear weapons was precipitated on us welcoming Nazi scientists and kind of forgiving their sins and allowing them to help us with rockets and with nuclear
okay.
development. And so Strangelove is clearly a Nazi. A couple times he does the Sig Heil sign and he pulls his arm down. And but when he's talking about his plan to basically get 10 beautiful women for every one man, and of course it has to include all the leaders of the country, male leaders of the country, he said, at the very end, the General Buck, that's his first name, not his last, but he starts basically going, well, we cannot allow for a cave gap. Like we can't, like, so this whole idea of, we got to keep up militarily with the other person. We got to keep up with the amount of nuclear weapons the Russians have, automatically shifts to we got to make sure we have as many caves. Like, just, and
It's all a
it speaks to
competition.
this idea of not trusting, ever trusting or letting our guard down, not ever kind of recognizing the craziness of what we're kind of in a loop about,
Yeah.
and that's clearly what he's poking fun of.
Yeah. I think there was one line about that when it was Buck Turgensen
Yeah,
was the general, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
he's fighting with the Russian ambassador, found a camera on him.
yeah,
And was it the president that said, "You can't fight in the war room?"
yeah. You can't fight in here. It's the war room. Yes. It's like, yeah.
My goodness. Uh,
Oh,
and
um,
there was so much in the way of imagery, and you touched on at least one of them with the stuff that was written on the bombs
yes.
in the plane. But also, I thought it was interesting the billboard that was out in front of the army base
Well,
when
several signs and several scenes. He Kubrick decides to shoot the scene where you can see, and I'm wondering if this was actually a actual slogan of the U.S. Air Force. I don't know, but peace is our profession.
yeah
And
pieces of
so, so in these shots where people are shooting at each other and they're trying to kill one another, in the back you see the scene that, or you see a sign that says "Peace is our profession." And then at one point, which is actually, which was funny, was it actually came to pass that the the USSR collapsed because they couldn't keep up with military spending, and so at one point the ambassador says we can't keep up with the nuclear race, the space race, and the peace race. Like,
trees.
yeah, you know,
This film is just it's so over the top.
yeah,
I mean, I get, in a sense, it feels like slapstick comedy of the 60s, you
yes,
know? Like we'll get some of that nowadays with, like Jack Black movies or
yeah,
something, but it's almost I want to call it a thinking man's comedy,
mhm.
if you will. Because if you're not paying attention, and if you're not, thinking about it, a lot of this stuff is going to go right over your head.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I do wonder, the kind of the argument you can always put. I mean, not that I think satire is bad, but the argument I think you get sometimes from satirists is you can make things so funny that people don't actually reflect on what you want them to reflect on.
right.
You
That's
know,
true.
and this movie is extremely funny, but he's trying to get you to understand the craziness of our war system. You know,
And I think maybe the best example of that in the film is the discussion you put in a quote, or you put a quote in the notes about uh will suffer only modest and acceptable civilian casualties,
yes, yeah,
as if any civilian casualties would be modest and acceptable, except that the reality of it is that that's not really off base. That's not really unrealistic that that conversation would be had in a war room, you
yeah.
know?
And I mean, they obviously do because they, again, we're tying in another movie, but in the '80s when we become kind of lose our luster around the sense that nuclear weapons make, you get a movie like War Games, where the computer is doing simulations, and the movie ends when he finally realizes you can't win thermonuclear war,
Right.
and that of course is the point, and that's the point he's trying to make here is you can't win this. It's not gonna be, even if the only way you win is you go like, well, we had 50% casualty rates and the other people had 60. But you got to think through the fact that 50 and 60% of casualty rates is, over half your population. Like, you
The
know,
people.
yeah. And I thought it was interesting how he made that point with using music because at the beginning you see that scene where there's like this love song playing and it's a bomber being refueled and it's like you're hearing
Yeah,
a
that's
song.
that's not a metaphor or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. You hear a song that you would expect you would see if people were making out, and what you see is this, this bomb being this bomber being refueled, and then at the end you have this till we meet again as
Yeah,
nuclear devices are being exploded and the world is literally ending.
zero in, yeah.
Again, I think he's trying to make a point. I'm kind of interested. I didn't do any research. I don't know if you did about how effective this movie was in people thinking about.
I didn't do that. I looked at a few YouTube videos that kind of analyzed particularly the metaphors and the imagery and stuff in the films. And some, of course, so much of this film being about, well, what we would call today toxic masculinity, but
Yeah,
machismo,
seasoning.
this, we're the men, we've got to, we're going to handle things, like,
Yeah, bravado. We're going to
yeah,
get this done. Um, and again, it's this idea of, I don't know. I thought it was interesting, like at different points when they know they've made a mistake, instead of copping to the mistake, General Buck is kind of like going, we could just kind of push all our chips in and end up winning this. I know it was started by a mistake, but let's
yeah,
take this opportunity. And you get that sense from Doctor Strangelove. You get that sense from a couple other characters. It's about this idea of, well, war is inevitable, so let's just get it done.
yeah, which, yeah, that's mad.
Yeah. And
Absolutely mad.
I thought it was I missed it the first time I saw this movie, but I caught it this time, of course, because I've been paying more attention. But when the bombers are unpacking, when the bomb crew is unpacking their care package, and he pulls out they say, "Oh, here's a Bible and a Russian translate book, and it's one book, and it's the size of a matchbook." And you're like, wait, that's not going to be helpful either way. And I'm like, oh, he's trying to make the point that we don't want people to reflect on their religious faith. We don't want people to communicate with the other side. We
Right.
want to silo everybody.
It's, one of the podcasters that I watched a review of this film, he says, "Boy, if there's like one movie prop in history that I would love to get my hands on, it's that."
Yes. It was hilarious when like you get these kind of silly things in this care package or this ration, but one of the ones you see is this Bible and a Russian translation, and they're both the same thing. So
Yeah,
like,
it's one book. Yeah.
yeah, it's one book. It's just, and it's like, oh, they don't want the, and it is interesting to reflect on that. We usually, and this is a Christian perspective, but we usually fear our enemies because we don't know our enemies. You know, Usually when we build relationships with people, we start seeing them differently. And it's
Sure.
because we understand that they care about a lot of the same things we care about, and they worry about a lot of things, same things we worry about.
Well,
And
and I had this very discussion with the fellow that I'm mentoring this morning because when you look at someone, we'll use like a president,
yeah,
okay? When a president sees people as numbers,
yeah,
there's numbers of people, there's so many millions here, so many millions there. Whereas when you get down to a situation where it's a pastor and a congregation,
yeah,
you build relationships with these people. You're in a similar kind of position of authority over those
yeah,
people, similar, not the same,
yeah,
certainly, but you actually have relationship with these people, as opposed to just being sort of authority over many millions, whereas when you have that authority over many millions, you don't have the same investment in
yeah.
individuals.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it would be nice for us to get lower the amount of people that are in each district that a representative to Congress represents, because if you get it down to 100,000, 200,000 people, that's much better in terms of building relationships
Right.
than 800,000 or a million people, which some people represent.
Right. for sure. Yeah, well, it's a nice thing about living where I live. I mean,
You can meet
our,
your representative.
our district might have more cows than people.
Yes.
Um, it's a different story. Um, what else?
Um, I don't
We
know.
talked
I
about
think
the peace thing. I thought that was fascinating.
yes. I don't know. I thought it was interesting the idea that again, this started back before this movie, but it was very common. I guess there were a couple lawsuits early on in the history of movies where people sued movie studios because they had a character named their same name, you know. And so movie studios put a description, and they still may have it, at the end of every movie. It says basically any person mentioned here is,
Yeah,
is
they still
based
have
on a
it.
fictional, you know, and what was interesting was he chose to put that up front in big bold letters to start the movie and to also include, hey, the US Air Force says this possibly couldn't happen. They have safeguards for this not to happen like this. And I thought it was interesting because it made me really think about, well, how effective are those safeguards? And
Indeed.
how do you deal? And here's the problem with any kind of activity. How do you deal with human error? Because human error is always going to find its way into any kind of governmental structure or any kind of a military structure.
Sure.
Either there's going to be somebody like in this movie where General, can't remember what his name is, the
Ripper.
what?
Jack D. Ripper.
Yeah, Jack, yeah, I should have remembered. Jack D. Ripper. General Ripper, loses his mind and he does something that causes the war. And even though that's kind of silly, people do lose, people do have psychotic breaks. They do crazy things sometimes. And those people that can also happen to people in leadership with power. You
Sure.
know,
If you want to see it in a more realistic setting type of film, Full Metal Jacket,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, with this guy with Ripper, I mean, it's yeah, he lost his mind, but he lost his mind because he blames the Russians for his impotence.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. And
I was tired. You were tired? So it's the fluoride in the water that you don't know is there that the Russians put there, and that's why we need to bomb them out of existence.
yeah. But also, this idea, I think it can be overdone sometimes, absolutely. But I do think this reflection on how we see masculinity and what we see as making a man
Hmm.
is an interesting conversation to have. Like,
Yeah,
especially as a person with a disability and people sometimes struggling to see my masculinity through the disability, it's worth a conversation to reflect on what makes a man and why do we emphasize things like violence and strength, physical
yeah,
strength, and why do we tend to elevate those ideals of this is what makes a man important. Yeah,
yeah. It's interesting because I saw it was a reel on YouTube,
yeah,
and somebody was commenting on an interview with a political candidate who is apparently texting with a whole lot of women, but
yeah,
he's married.
yeah,
And, they asked him about his masculinity.
yeah,
And I thought, one, is that a question for a political candidate?
yeah,
Two, so what? Like, I know, look, I don't like the guy. If he were in my district, I wouldn't vote for him, but
yeah.
so what?
Well,
Like that's not
yeah,
what, and all the things that he went on to list,
yeah.
well, I go hunting, I shoot guns. And okay, that's what makes you manly?
Yeah. Well, or
What?
even there's a situation in the Senate race in Texas that I find fascinating that people are attacking one of the candidates because they're attacking him, and he's going out of his way to prove that he's not a vegan. But there's a part of me that's like,
So
even if
what?
he is a vegan, why would that make him a bad leader?
Uh, well, in Texas, it would. He's not a vegan, but in Texas, I know who you're talking about. In Texas, it would make him a bad leader because Texas is the largest beef producer in the country.
Oh, I know, but I mean, just the idea of like, well, he can't be the leader because he's vegan. I'm like, wait, like,
No, I agree with you. That's a silly tack. Either
yeah,
his policies are good for the state or they're
yes, or
not.
they're not. And again, what's interesting is you see this oftentimes. Those are two examples from this current political season, but you see it every political season where this weird thing that shouldn't really matter is how we judge, the leader that we're going to pick. Like I remember in the 2000s, people would go like, well, George W. Bush won because people felt like they could go have a beer with him, and I'm like,
But
who cares
that's
if you
not
can
why you would.
have a beer with him? He's the president of the United States. Like, you're never going to have a beer with him, and that's
You
not an
know,
important thing.
and there's still to this day so much propaganda in that direction. Like I'm sure we've all seen the memes where they superimpose Donald Trump's head over Rocky's body,
Yeah,
in the red, white, and blue shorts. Why? Who cares? I
yeah,
don't. I wouldn't vote for the man based on his physique. You know, it's not.
yeah. I mean, I find it interesting how we have this weird idea of what makes a good leader sometimes, and you're like, you know, don't you want somebody who's really thoughtful? Don't you want somebody that thinks through things? Don't you want somebody that wants to hear opinions? Don't you want, and
And
what,
and somebody, I mean,
yeah,
look, at least coming at it from the pastoral
yeah,
perspective that we have,
yeah,
somebody who is genuine.
yeah,
If I want one thing more than anything else in a leader, it is someone who is genuine, right? Like
yeah.
if you don't know, tell me you don't know, but go find out.
And what I thought was interesting is, again, I think it is a fair critique, is that in this movie, none of the leaders seem to be that bothered by what was about to happen.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of there's no panic.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want panic, but there's no sense even of panic. Oh my God, we've ended the world.
Yes.
It's there's sort of this stoic, well, how much time do we have left? Well, what can we do about that? When like
Yeah.
somebody get excited here because this is not a good situation we're in right now.
I mean, what would you? I mean, I was thinking about trying to end more of these conversations with, okay, what's a good Christian tack to this issue? And one of the things I thought about a lot in this movie is because peace on earth comes up a lot in this movie,
Mhm.
is the idea of how can we honestly take seriously the challenge Jesus lays at our feet about loving our enemy? Like really trying to build relationships, trying to understand, trying to see the world from somebody else's perspective. How can we take that more seriously in our lives?
I mean, like, blessed are the cheesemakers. Uh, uh,
Peacemaker.
see, you know that reference too, right? Um, yeah, I think that's incumbent upon us, right? As clergy, it's something that we ought to be able to preach. It's something we ought to be able to model.
Yeah,
Um, it's not always easy. Certainly, if it were a situation that I could protect, say, my own family with an act of violence, I'm pretty sure there's going to be violence, because I'm going to protect my family. But that's hard to, it's hard to parse out, right?
yeah,
Because what we teach theologically, what we believe in our faith, and what we encounter in real life are often very disparate things.
yeah.
So it's a fine line, I think, for all of us pastors and Christians to walk,
Sure.
um, and to struggle with, maybe even on a daily basis,
Yeah.
right? I had a conversation yesterday with my youngest son about some of his behaviors, and I said, if I were to cast you as a superhero, you would be the Incredible Hulk because you have an intense lack of self-control, and if something triggers you, you blow up,
Mm.
you know, and maybe, part of it for all of us is to get to that second level of thinking, beyond how does it affect me, but how does my response affect the whole situation,
Yeah.
you know? Um, which I mean, this I'm going to circle back to this film. I mean, this is going on my Amazon wish list along with Citizen Kane because I know I have to watch it again at some point, and I just did a rental on it to watch it this week,
Yeah.
um, because I'm sure I missed a whole lot. Uh,
Yeah. And again, he has a really interesting way in his films of trying to crack open conversations.
oh, you mean Kubrick, Stanley Kubrick? Yeah. Well, I mean, think about the films he's made.
Yeah.
You know, what was Eyes Wide Shut was one. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Did he do Clockwork Orange?
Yeah, he did Clockwork
Yeah.
Orange. He did the movie you referenced earlier, Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket, right?
So
So Kubrick is
again, and
is
he is very skeptical, and I think it's a good. I do think Americans, as much as we should support our troops and support people that are in the military, being willing to push back on the use of violence and being willing to question what we do to people when we form them into killing machines and how we deal with that and how we help bring them through that is a conversation we as Americans usually don't have.
yeah, yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Well, we are getting close to time,
Yeah.
so we'll have to. I think we both would recommend that folks
Oh yeah.
see this film if you
It's
haven't
a
seen
classic.
it.
It's a
Go
classic.
back and watch it again if you have, because it, without question, one of the darker films. Certainly the darkest comedy we have talked about,
Yeah. Oh
but
yeah.
one of the darker films overall that we have talked
I
about,
don't
really.
think you could get a darker comedy.
Sure you can,
And
honestly.
it's amazing to me that it's only 90 minutes. I mean, that was what was amazing. It was like,
Yeah.
holy crap.
So it's definitely a thumbs up. It's a recommend.
Absolutely.
It's worth seeing. But let's talk about next week, John. You're up. What would you like to take a look at
I
next week?
looked at the top streaming movies, and one of them I have no idea about. I know one of the people in it. It looks like Sally Fields is in it, but Remarkably Bright Creatures. It's on Netflix.
Okay.
I
I
just thought I'd throw that
think I
out
have seen something about that one.
there. Okay.
I probably won't be able to pull it up that quickly. Yeah, Netflix on my. I got a new phone several weeks ago, so I haven't synced up Netflix on my phone just yet. So okay, so I have that. I have Netflix in the house. I can watch it in the
Okay.
house. So the film for next week is Remarkably Bright Creatures. Um, until next week, friends, keep on finding God in the dark. We will see you all next Friday. Take care and God bless. Bye. Thanks again for watching the Finding God in the Dark podcast, friends. If you've made it here all the way to the end of the video, then obviously you find something that we're doing to be educational or informative, something valuable in this podcast. So we want to invite you to go ahead and share this with your friends. Hit the like button. Follow us for more of this. We publish every week at 10 a.m. on Friday mornings on YouTube. Shortly thereafter, you'll find us somewhere on Facebook. Until next Friday, keep on finding God in the dark. Thanks for watching. Bye now.